Good morning, it's Jim from the Maverstar Observatory. We're going to get into what we're looking at the moment. Before we do though, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the people that have given us a bit of support over the last few days on PayPal. December is our lowest month, and it'll be the same for January as well. It's just the time of the year, and I'm sure that you guys know why that is the case. So, I just want to thank those few people that are supporting us, and if there's anyone else that want to, cross the line and support what we do at the observatory, then the links are down there. So what are we doing? I'm looking at the map that was released on December the 10th from NOAA and the British Geological Survey with regards to the overall intensity, and in particular I'm focusing right now on the South Magnetic Dipole and its position. If you've been following me this week, you'll know that when they released it, I checked it against where I said the North Pole was. We're going to the North Pole for now, we'll come back to the South. And I said that it was about 600 miles out from where they're putting it. So on a little bit further investigation today, I've spent a bit of time. I've got the latest version of Google Earth. I've also got this version, which is about 2007. It's about as old as this nail of a computer, but it's still giving me the same map on the later version, or the Google Pro version of Google Earth. And what I'm particularly interested in is where NOAA are stating that the magnetic North Pole is. And the problem that I've came to find is that if you look at 135 degrees east by 65 degrees south, the actual layout of the continent of Antarctica is not the same. As you can see from here, where I found it to be very similar to what we're looking at, if not it is the place. I do believe we are looking at the place, and that's here on Google Earth. And we're about 53 degrees north, so I put the magnetic pole where they're showing it according to the peninsula of Antarctica to be around about 153 degrees east by 67 degrees south. And you can verify this for me, guys, because what I'm looking for is actual the land that fits the shape of this continent here. And I believe I have got it. You see this little estuary here on the South Pole, or the Antarctic plateau. We can see that refers to that, and the other point that I matched up was this big cove here, and there's the cove, and there is that estuary there. So they're putting it at 135 degrees east, but 135 degrees east is, as you can see from this map, well over here, and that is 559 miles away. That's very coincidentally not far off what I said their magnetic North Pole was off from ours. So at this point in time, it looks like for some reason on the bottom of their map, and I just want to show you that we are looking at their new release, on the bottom of their map, the headings and latitude, or longitude and latitude, seems to be not in the correct positions of where they're saying it is, and for that reason the magnetic North Pole can't be found at 135 degrees east. It's at a position of 153 degrees east, which is 555 miles away from where they're actually saying it is, according to this. Now, if that's the same case, and their map is out by 18 degrees or 559 miles, then if we just make the adjustments to the North Pole, we'll find that where they're putting their magnetic North Pole is within about 40 miles of where we're saying it is ourselves here at the Maverstar Observatory. And you've got to ask the question again, like we did the other day when they made the mistake with the dates. Why is this organisation coming out making these announcements? They're funded by governments, and they've got the support of millions of pounds behind them. Why they're making mistakes on the overall intensity maps, which is the ones that you'd want to use if you're going to keep track of where the magnetic North Pole and South Pole are migrating from, and if you want to see what's happening with the overall largest intensities, those will be the maps. But if the headings are out, you know, you're going to be 500 miles away from where you need to put your pin in the map to say that that is where the poles have migrated to at this position. Have they created themselves a buffer zone should the pole migrate rapidly? Have they given themselves 559 miles ahead start so that they will know before anybody else will know that the poles are in migration? Are they doing this now as a reason to, you know, later on say that if the pole does migrate, just keep quiet, we'll be in the know but no one else will? That will give us the edge on whatever strategic plan we need to take at that point in time. I think that that is the case. I think these are very sloppy mistakes that the NOAA is putting out right now, and you know, it doesn't take anyone to be a genius to go and line up the Antarctic Peninsula with Google Earth and then just check the headings and longitudes or latitudes and find out the true position of where they're saying the magnetic North Pole is. I'm going to have a look now at the North Pole, and you know, according to this, if it's 18 degrees out, we should know where theirs is, and we'll check it the same as what we have. But before we do that, I just want to show you 2015 South Pole position, January 2019 pole position, and January 2019 December pole position. It's just so you can get an idea of where they're saying how much it's migrated just over that little period of time. So let's do that before we go and have a look at the North Pole. Okay, to give you an idea what we're looking at, top left represents December 2014, which was 5 years ago. Top right represents January this year, 2019. Bottom left represents February this year, 2019. And bottom right represents December 2019 on the 10th, which was 11 days ago. And what we can see is the South Pole moving over that period of time. Now we can see from the top left in 2014 to January 2019, total time amount 5 years, the pole has moved slightly south. We can see it's gotten closer to the Arctic Peninsula, and it has also moved just a little bit east, because we can see that the latitude line that represents 135 degrees east has crossed another two of the lines on the star that they're using to represent the dipole. You can just see that the corners are missing off it, and a little bit of the positive, and if you want, the times symbol in that star. So they believe that from January top right to bottom left, which is February, just a distance in time of 1 month, the pole migrated more than what it did over the 5 year period further north, because you can see that you can't even see the peninsula now under the star. And not only did it do that, but it also moved again just slightly west in 1 month. And then if we go 11 months on to the most recent released total intensity map that NOAA have put out 11 days ago, we can see that it moved, which direction is it moving? It's moving west again. No, it's moved east again and slightly south. Find it hard to believe, to be honest. First of all, I don't think they've just got the legend with regards to the dates wrong on their charts that they've released. They've also got the headings wrong on there, and you know, according to, you know, where we've positioned the magnetic North Pole, it is very close to the amount that they've got it wrong. I mean, they're saying it's at 135 degrees east by 63 degrees south, and we've got it at you know, 153 degrees east by 67 degrees south, and we've lined it up with the continent of Antarctica on the map on Google Earth. And if you go to where they're saying it is, the continent looks nothing like the map that they're showing. So that they've got not only the legend wrong on the dates, they've also got the headings of longitude and latitude on the maps wrong as well. And I don't believe that in 1 month the South Pole migrated more than what it did since 2014 to 2019 in January. I don't believe that from January this year to February this year it only migrated the same amount as what it did in the 5 years. And from 11 months then on afterwards, hardly moved at all. I think NOAA are just putting the South Pole in a position to mislead people. That's my interpretation. I don't believe that you can make so many mistakes and it be a mistake. Let's look at it. They released 90 maps, one with blacked out intensities, one with clear intensities. As you can see, the blackout is that little ring around the top right, as opposed to not having it on the top bottom left, or the darker region, or the shaded region, whichever you want. But they released a total of 90 maps, and on the 2 out of each packet of 45, the total intensity map was the one that was wrong with the date. I believe what they've done is tried to simply pacify the general public with this information, and it's not accurate. If you want to know where that magnetic North Pole is in conjunction with the peninsula of Antarctica, you've got to look at 153 degrees east and 67 degrees south to find that same shoreline. So, you know, we've definitely caught them out on a couple of things here, and there's no mistake in that. Not only that, Richard, who's quite good and is a bit of a dab hand with the maps and things like that and editing programs, he's overlaid it so you can see transfer out and in, and you can see that a lot of these intensity lines almost fall exactly on top of each other from January to December this year, and I'll show you that next. Now, just before I start the video, where we can see the two coming forward and then fading back into the background, the one is from January this year, the other one is from December this year. But some of the intensity lines are in the exact same place, and what Richard has had to do to get the one map over the other one is stretch it a little bit, and that is because one only goes up to a latitude of 70 degrees, the other one goes up to a latitude of 90 degrees, and he's spent a bit of time playing about with it to bring out the trend. And I'll just run that now, and you can see for yourselves and make whatever conclusions you will on that as well. So he's swapping now between the two charts, and you can see the intensity lines over the two hardly shift, if anything. So we're going from January map to December on there. I'll just try and run it once more. And there you go. Another image I just wanted to briefly show you is a reconstruction image of the magnetism over 400 years. This comes from Kyoto, I believe, in Japan, a research institute that studies geomagnetism. So you can see, first of all, the southern hemisphere here, and I will move it up so you can have a look at what's changing over the last 400 years. And then I'll just show you the northern hemisphere. And what you really can see in these two, in this imagery, is the formation of the two highest intensities over Canada and Siberia, and then you get the one which is approaching Australia right now that we've been focused on most of this video, or that dipole. Again, I just want to say this to you guys: it is very strange that, you know, we have at the moment, and I'll explain why it is the case, and over the northern hemisphere, where you can see the main intensity creeping at the later dates. You'll just see it coming into now, and you can see like a round disk there measuring 62,000 nanoteslas. It is very odd for the magnetic North Pole not to be in there, and the reason for that is because we have actually two poles over the northern hemisphere, and we did have two poles over the southern hemisphere. The bottom right hand side intensity recently has disappeared, leaving three poles now on our planet, or three major intensities. The ones that are carrying the actual dipole is the only one that's doing that out of the three is the one that is approaching Australia right now. The other one is still trapped in between the two highest intensities over the northern hemisphere. and we are seeing a rapid decay of the intensity over Canada right now. And as that decays, the dipole, which is in between Canada and Siberia, almost central of England but slightly west, will begin to move as the decay increases, and it will eventually end up in the highest intensity over Siberia, and I anticipate that to be within about 4 to 7 years time. Now, I have speculated and supposed that the magnetism of our planet also drives climate, and the reason for that is I've showed before magnetic maps over the northern hemisphere, and comparing that with temperature maps over the northern hemisphere, we virtually get the same pattern forming. If you throw in extra cosmic radiation at this point in time, this is what makes everything very, very difficult to, incorporate all these things that are taking place to get a prediction of what is going on. If you incorporate the grand solar minimum, we know that over the last 33 years sunspot activity has dropped off, or solar activity has dropped off, and it may not recover for quite some time. But whilst that has happened, the heliosphere has shrunk in our solar system, allowing more cosmic radiation in. And on top of that, our Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and recently from our stations in Hong Kong, west and east coast of Australia in Perth, and the Gold Coast, we've seen a 4 microtesla or a 4,000 nanotesla drop in intensity over that side of the Earth, and that equates to another 7%, so we could be looking at around about 27% decrease in the magnetosphere at the moment, at least in those regions. And for NOAA to come out with these updated maps showing hardly anything changing over a 5-year period, and then dramatically changing in 1 month, and then 11 months later hardly anything again, is bewildering me. And not only that, they've also got the longitudinal and latitudinal headings wrong on the map as well. And not only that, they got the dates wrong as well when they made the release 11 days ago. I do believe that there is something not being done as it should do from these departments, and it's going to be very difficult for them to admit it or get the truth out of them. The best we can do is, if we have seen that there's an error of 559 miles in just where they're putting the pole with relationship to the map, and the headings in a different place, and if we compare where they put the magnetic north pole, and I might as well get up that chart so we can see it and we can talk about that. So let's do that. So we're focusing on the north magnetic pole, or the dipole, where NOAA and the British Geological Survey have placed it. If they are off with the south pole by 559 miles, then we're very accurately, or very, very close, within a 40-mile vicinity of where they're putting the north pole as well. And that makes again, questions to be asked with regards to where they're positioning this pole at the moment and why they're doing it. All I can say, guys, is that there has been some dramatic changes on our planet in recent years. This map that we're looking at with the jet streams isn't a recent one. It's probably around about 6 to 12 months old. It might even be 18 months old. But the point is this: I could get it up today, but I wanted to show you the graphic underneath that shows you where the jet streams should be. We should have a subtropical over the northern hemisphere at around 30 degrees north, and then at 60 degrees north we should have the polar jet stream. And it should be the same case for the southern hemisphere of our planet as well. What we're looking at, and I know that this jet stream map is not recent, but I will, if you want, put up the recent one. You can see for yourselves as well. The point is this: is that we're supposed to have 2 jet streams over the northern and southern hemisphere, and we've got one over the northern and one over the southern, and that's not right. And as a result of that, we're going to start seeing, as the jet stream widens with more water vapor as a result of cosmic radiation, a lot more of this climate chaos that we've been witnessing. And when the jet streams dip beneath continents like they have recently under Australia, it's going to make it drier and hotter. The other important thing is here, guys, is to remember, if we go back only 300 years before a lot of these continents was colonized like they are now. I mean, America didn't have the population 300 years ago it does today. Australia certainly didn't have the population it's got there today, and these people that have recently moved there and been brought up there over the last 300 years have colonized it. But the problem is they've easily overlooked some very important factors. The reason why these weren't the boom targets on this earth for population expansion thousands of years ago was because simply they weren't the easiest habitats to live in. In Australia you had Aborigines, and unless you're an Aborigine and the climate goes back to the way it was there, you're going to struggle. As Australia is right now, almost losing 50% of their corn crop, I believe this year. If that continues through the droughts getting hotter and hotter, and you've only got to look at the terrain in Australia to see how red the soil is, that is an indication that it's been in the heat for a long time. It's been oxidized, and that doesn't happen over a day or two, doesn't happen over a couple of years. It takes thousands of years to oxidize soil to make it red like that. And it's the same case for other hot climates like Africa. Very red soil, simply because of the temperatures that it's used to having over thousands of years. If you go a little bit slightly north of Africa, you'll see that the colour of the sands change to a lighter colour, and that's because the temperatures there in the north of Africa are nowhere near as what they are in the South Africa, and that's why you get the Sahara being lighter sands to you do a little bit further down south towards the equatorial region in Africa. The main point is this, over in America, it used to be occupied by native Indians before, it was colonized. Again, they was never in numbers of what people are now in the United States today. And the reason for that is because back then it was, what you've got to remember is that your environment is what regulates numbers. And we have artificially increased the numbers through technology and transporting stuff into cities which are densely packed regions. But it's what we're seeing now on the bigger scale, that's the land that supports cities starting to not be as successful in the crop growths. And this has led to different scenarios, like in America they've had the jet stream come way down low, and in turn bringing the Arctic air with it, and causing a lot of farmers further north in America and Canada to get caught out with the change in early climatic season changes. Again, with Australia, we saw the jet stream dip below for quite a long period of time, and they've ended up with higher temperatures and a drier environment as a result of that. If it had been over the continent, they would have had more rains and not sustained as much losses in crops as what they have. But they really have had it kicked out of them in Australia this year as a result of the jet streams and their positions and their locations of where they are. But the reason why the jet streams are like this is because they've got really fat and laden with water and precipitation in some parts of there, and it's made those troughs and peaks of the sine wave of which the jet stream would be at 30 degrees and obviously 60 degrees, very, very laden with water, and it's broken up. And what we can see is almost a convergence of polar and subtropical. And when you get the two mixing, you get hot air mixing with cold air mixing with hot, and you get different circumstances as a result of that. You can end up with snow or a lot of rain. Or if the jet stream is completely under your continent, as is with the case recently with Australia, you won't get none of it at all. We really are seeing climate disorder right now take place on our planet, and as we go closer into this magnetic pole reversal, it is only going to get worse. I always say this, guys, we haven't reached equilibrium yet, and because of that it's going to sadly and regrettably get worse. And these organisations know it. We haven't just got a pole reversal on our hands, we haven't just got a grand solar minimum on our hands, we've also got a returning at some point, and it is definitely at the doorstep for us, back into a glacial period, and in that time period we are going to be in these temperatures where, you know, the northern hemisphere of our planet suddenly starts to gradually get colder, and it will remain like that for around about 60 to 80,000 years, as it has done 5 times in the last 400,000 years. You know, we have to learn to adapt with nature, and if we are trying to change nature to adapt with us, we're going to come unstuck. And, you know, you can probably immediately think of what they're trying to do with, you know, cloud seeding to make it rain, cloud seeding to dry up clouds. We know they do it, and we know they put lots of particulates into the atmosphere to cause all sorts of reactions. But, you know, with them not coming out and telling the public, it's almost like they are knowingly leading the general public of the earth to disaster. And this might be the big plan in, you know, I don't want to go conspiracy on anyone, but it might be the plan that a lot of people talk about, where they put it off as a natural disaster that has ended up wiping off, you know, many billions of people on this planet. I'm not talking about millions, I'm talking about billions. You know, in order for us to sustain our lives in the cities, we need lots of things to be imported into them, not just energy, gas, water, electricity. We also need food. You know, cities are stagnant areas. They do not self-sustain themselves. All this talk about, you know, sustainability is ridiculous. You know, if you're not going to include nature and its natural cycles of change into that sustainable plan, then, you know, you're only setting up the action for billions of people to die. And that is exactly what it appears to look like, with misleading documents coming out of these departments on CO2 being a evil gas that kills people, you know, if it goes above 400 parts per million. Yeah, if it drops to only 150 parts per million, you know, the whole of our diversity of trees and shrubs and foliage shuts down. You know, if you just bear in mind where 150 is and where 400 parts per million of this trace gas, which is nothing in our atmosphere, if you just bear in mind how important it is for the trees and all the other things to get what it needs, in order for us to get what we need as well, guys. You know, we need the trees to thrive. We need this planet to look nice and green. It's when it starts to look like Mars, we're in a lot of trouble. And if they want to reduce CO2, to cut back on this earth going greener and greener, then you've got to really realise something, guys, that something going on here that shouldn't be, and it doesn't make any logic whatsoever. You know, we've got some great minds still alive. One of them is in his 90s now. I'm talking about Freeman Dyson, and he describes this CO2 as a religion, this CO2 anxiety, and these climate nutcases that are running, you know, organisations like Extinction Rebellion, that are backing, you know, Greta Thunberg, that are giving people like Al Gore Nobel Peace Prizes. It's completely, I'm stuck for words. We're living in crazy times, where what comes from these organisations is against humanity, against our beautiful earth, Gaia, if you want to call it that. It's against everything that should be done right. It's like they work for the dark forces. So you've got to say this, guys. It's almost like these people want to kill the planet and in turn kill us. And it makes you feel that they're not even human beings. All they seem to be driven and care for is money and nothing else. And it's not good. You know, there are more people not in these positions in this world than there are that are in. And, you know, we're doing nothing pretty much but letting them carry on, because we're all just concentrating in our own little eggshell, in our own little bubbles back at home. You know, in the morning, right now, you might have your breakfast with the bacon and eggs on it, but that might not be the case in 7 years' time. I can guarantee you that. We haven't seen the worst of what's to come. And it's only going to get worse as the pole migrates, as we go deeper into this grand solar minimum, and as we get closer to returning back to a glacial age, guys. This little observatory monitors all these things and brings it back to you. Hopefully we've cleared up some truths on CO2 and how dangerous it is and how dangerous it's not, and how it benefits this planet. And hopefully you guys will take this information, you might want to share this video with somebody else and shove it down their necks. Make them see the truth, guys. You know, I go to a lot of trouble. I don't just talk about it, I don't just do the research. And, you know, videos like this take a hell of a long time for me to put up. You know, I buy the equipment, I invest a hell of a lot of time. There's a big effort put out there. And, you know, we're not making millions on this channel. Far from it. You can't even pay one person's salary with what we raise on this channel. And during these last three, you know, November and December, the funding's pretty much dropped off. And it will be the same case because it was last year in January. So, you know, think about what we do here at the observatory. There's a lot of people behind us now, guys, that are actually helping to get this information all put in a concise manner, what you can palette it at, you know. And, you know, it'd be great if you could support the observatory. We've got expenses, guys, and we've got equipment going out in January we haven't yet got all together. So, you know, if you can help us, you know, there, it'd be great. Guys, sorry that the video's gone on for so long, but there's a lot of information. I don't want to miss out a little bit and then have someone in the comment section, oh, can you just tell us this? Can you try? I try and put as much as I can into the uploads as possible with enough information for even a layperson to understand what's going on in their world. And you know, with that, I'm just going to say, guys, there's a link down there if you want to support us, and we could really do with some support at this point in time of the year. And there's only one other thing to say, and that's, you know, have a great day, guys, and I'll catch up with you again at some point this week. As always, bye for now.